that's acceptable as long as it includes every single date of service that you're going to outline on the report. It should have a unique invoice number. And this is a question we often get from first-time partners. Well, how do you come up with the unique invoice number? Literally, we don't care how you come up with it. So what happens is when every single invoice takes that unique number, gets attached to the payment that goes through our deed fiscal to be checked on, and then it goes over to SWIFT, which is the actual state payment system that will issue the payment to your account. You will have an authorization number, but you might bill multiple times on the same authorization. For example, a PBA, you're going to bill 3 to 4 times on that same authorization number, most likely. So we want the invoice number to be unique because that's how we track that exact payment, okay? I have seen everything from initials or last name of the individual plus a number after it, and then the numbers just increase. I've seen the year 2022 and then a dash and some sort of unique identifier. You literally can come up with any system, or if you have an accounting system that auto-generates unique numbers, that's completely fine. On the invoice, you do have to include the work authorization number. That lets us know which encumbered funds you are billing against. So it is really important as a partner to, first of all, always have an authorization in place before you start working with a participant. Make sure that the date of service is on or before the day you're going to meet with the person for the first time. And then you want to keep track of those work authorization numbers and how much you're billing against them so that you don't ever exceed the amount of hours or the amount of dollars that have been encumbered for that work authorization number. You're also going to run and write down the type of service. And again, this is outlined for you on the work authorization. We're going to go over some samples soon, and I can show you where you can find the exact language off the authorization to put onto your invoice. How many units, hours, is it a milestone each that you're billing? And then your remit to address. Please make sure that your remit to address includes your Secretary of State filed business name, as well as the address that's on file in SWIFT for your payments. Otherwise, that does sometimes cause delays. And then just an important reminder, everything has to be turned in by 90 days from the end date of that work authorization, but we really encourage you continue to bill more regularly. It really helps us keep your budgets and your funding more accurate because we have real-time updates on what money is being spent and which money can be added back into your budget. And then please don't ever handwrite on the invoice. If you make a correction, you need to do that electronically or through Word or PDF because we can't have handwriting on them. Okay, so I'm going to pull up some samples. This is a sample invoice. And again, these are documents you can find, but I just want to talk through how this meets those recommendations that, or those requirements that we have from our federal funder real quick. So here it's indicating to me that the remit to partner that we're working with is here. That's their address. Everything matches up. They have a unique invoice number. They have an invoice date, and they're billing to their local voc rehab office. Again, this is just a suggestion, like sample address. Please always put the address of the actual office you're working with. And again, you can find that in an authorization. Name of participant is optional, but it's helpful. The authorization number, that range of dates of service, the specific service title is listed here, units, how much it's approved per hour, and then the total invoiced. So these are kind of the bare bones necessities of what we need to be able to pay you. That corresponds to a report that also includes the name of the provider, the service, the participant name, and here we break it down to exact dates of service. So within that range that was printed on the invoice, we're going to go through and we're going to have details or information about what was done that matches those contracted service definitions that you were authorized for. A really helpful checklist that you can find out on our website and that I find to be really helpful is this VRS invoice and report checklist. It's an optional desk aid, but it's really going to help you get through this. You can make a note. Did I put things together? Is the service identified on the invoice and the report, and do they match? And does it match what's on the authorization? Is there enough detail? So on and so forth. So it just kind of is a helpful reminder, especially as you're getting started. So I'm going to now show you a sample authorization because, again, I want to show a little bit of where you can find information off these work authorizations that's helpful to you as you're doing invoicing and reporting. First of all, this is the case ID or record ID for the individual. His fund name, Bob Zerunkel. Authorization number, if sometimes it prints a purchase order as well, if it's already been sent over to Swift, but you can disregard that. It usually starts with the number 5, and that's the authorization number. That's what you're going to put on your invoice to show that you are billing against this specific work authorization. The date it was issued, the actual service dates. And then here's the vendor we're using. And this remit to is going to be, again, the address that Swift has on file to send your payments to. Down here, it's showing me exactly that I get 35 hours of job coaching for the month of July, essentially. And when you are writing it on your report, this service type and title is where you're going to find that exact language to put what you're billing for. You are billing for on the job supports, time limited, but especially the second half is the really important piece to put on your invoice and report. Job coaching for short-term job supports. The second line shows you get 3 hours of travel. And again, travel expenses to provider is the important service title that you're going to put on your authorization or on your invoice, excuse me. Shows you how much per hour and the total amount that we have encumbered for that. Down here, it shows which office you're billing it to. In this case, it would be billing it to me at our former Brooklyn Park location. So this is the address and area that you want to put on your invoice. And typically at the bottom, you would have an email that said invoices.brooklynpark, something like that. That would be our shared email address. This is an older authorization that I did, so it's not showing up on this, but typically down here in the contact information, you'll find that shared invoice email inbox. So now that we've kind of gone through what an authorization looks like, what an invoice looks like, what a report looks like, I'd like to talk a little bit more about the performance-based agreements progress reports. Again, these are the required monthly progress updates that have to be submitted by the 10th of every month following. So if I had my first milestone meeting with Jess Althwaite, and she's going to be my job seeker, and we met, we're planning to meet for that first placement meeting on May 18th. I'd submit a May monthly progress update report by June 10th. I'm also going to submit my placement plan that I got Jess to sign and the counselor to sign. And I'm also going to submit my invoice for milestone 1. But just every month that you start to work with somebody, even if it's a partial month, please submit a monthly progress update the following month by the 10th. Real quick, here's our sample VRS placement plan that we talked about. And again, it just kind of is a great way for folks to go through and look at what sort of information we'd like to see on your agency's placement plan, but this is not required. So let's dive into a regular monthly progress update. For this one, we have Bob Zerunkel again. I'm submitting it by September 10th, but I actually met with him on August 20th. You're going to list the VRS counselor, who's the placement professional, what organization are they coming from. And for E1 PBAs, but especially this is important information if you have it, you're going to want to put the Medicaid waiver case manager name and their lead agency. In some cases, it might be the local county, but in other cases, the county has subcontracted out to an agency to provide those case management services. Some other contacts, if they happen to have a guardian, the authorization number that is for this performance-based agreement, And in this case, it's a regular monthly progress update. My job seeker is not employed yet. So I've put this level of detail. What did we do this last month? We participated in a couple mock interview practice sessions, recorded a brief video element for his resume. He had one interview at Culver's in Eagan, but a job was not offered. What did I do? I helped him with those mock interview practices on these dates, did a PowerPoint resume with the video component, debriefed about the interview. I submitted applications to 3 employers, and we had one canceled meeting because we had a 60-day check-in coming right then. We both attended all of our meetings. I contacted 3 employers, and you can either attach a job log, or in this case, because it was just 3, I wrote it out on the line. So this is kind of that basic first section. I've got some information about what's working well. We're going to increase his application rate now that he's got good practice interviewing and a good resume. And this was the 60 days update. And that's how far it's been going so far. Okay, now I'm going to move on to if Bob got a job. Again, I've filled in the top position, the top area, because this is also going to serve as my monthly progress update based on the timing of it. He completed a video interview process for a stalker at Target. He was offered the position. I had actually done some more employer work, and where I submitted them was Home Depot, Hy-Vee, Dollar Store, and Target. But it's going well. Bob has a job. So here's the section called employment and follow-up. And this is what you're going to fill out to bill for that second job hire milestone. You'll need the address of the location, the wage, the hours per week, starting date, position, supervisor, potential benefits. Is it competitive integrated employment? This should always say yes. If it says no, we shouldn't be billing for a milestone 2, because Voc Rehab can only support competitive integrated employment through our performance-based agreement system. How did I get this information about their workplace? I got it actually from the employer, the Target HR, who's working closely with me. Sometimes the job seeker themselves don't need a lot of support, and they just give you the information on their job hire, etc. And you're going to want to track the number of days from that first milestone, the placement plan you did, to the first shift of work completed. And I'm going to give a little note about how I helped Bob get going with his job. After Bob's been successfully employed for 90 days, doesn't matter if Voc Rehab is not tracking their 90-day successful closure. That's a separate clock that has to do with a few other factors. So maybe Bob was waiting on some job coaching through waiver case management or something. We're not going to worry about that. We're just going to count 90 days from his first shift, which was September 21st. So we are into January, and I am submitting this for December 20th. I don't have to fill out the first section because we didn't do any job seeking work. We've already filled out this hire position or information on the previous milestone 2 report. So I'm just simply going to do the job placement and follow-up service closure final report. Again, I have all the same information about Target. If he had gotten a raise in the meantime, I could put that information here. What are the benefits? Yes, it's competitive. Yes, where did I get the information? So placement and closure is 1220. In the closure summary, you really want to kind of wrap up what you did as an agency and how Bob did as a job seeker. So here I mentioned what I supported him with, how I helped him. I met weekly with him. Bob was active and enthusiastic in his job search activities. He's working 3 5-hour shifts as a daytime stalker, identifies his manager, Andy, happens to be my son's name, and he does work at Target as a stalker, so that's why I threw him in as the manager. And a coworker named Kim as friends and natural supports. He's gotten extensive job coaching, and funding was seamlessly transferred from VRS to county waiver funding on this date. He's moved to needing less support, etc. VRS counselor has been contacted and agrees this job placement is going well. Placement services are closed as of this date. And that's the date that I will invoice for milestone 3 to get my final retention payment. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen. I know I went through a lot of information. I primarily wanted to focus on the PBA reports and how we bill for those. But I think, Sarah, maybe it's time to be done discussing this and we'll move on to the next part of our meeting.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Janine. And I'm going to stop our little mini